Hello, I'm Jeff Stevenson, and this is my video presentation of my one-year co-op internship at Husky Energy. I worked for the last 11 months in the IS procurement department, and then for the final month in the PSC, the Procurement Service Center at Husky Energy. So some of the things that I started working on right away, I kind of got thrown right into the fire here at Husky, which I'm told is not an ununique thing. For the most part, there was very little training as far as what to do, and there was a lot to do from day one. I got to learn a lot about myself and how I react to stress and what do I do, and so I started reaching out to other people in the company to try and figure out how to do things and what am I supposed to be doing, how do I do this, I keep messing this up, and so some of those things, some of the roles that I got into in this role, I was a category technician for the procurement department. So my job, as it slowly progressed, was to assign RTEPs. RTEPs are requests to engage procurement. Routing documents, so anytime there was an internal document for signature that required the signatures of all the directors, I would have to route it to them and get them to sign it. So you couldn't just hand them something. My very first document I did, he said, "What is this?" And I went, "I don't know, it's something with IBM." And he just looked very angry at me. I said, "Just leave it on my desk." And I learned very quickly that in order to get things signed, you needed to know what they were, and you needed to know how to sort of charm both their admin assistant and the director themselves. CLM entries. CLM is the contract lifecycle management software that Husky uses. So once a document is signed and becomes a contract and has been signed by both parties, a statement of work is signed, an award decision is signed, it is then entered into the contract lifecycle management system. So I learned how to do that. Once it's in CLM, then a purchase order requisition can be created. The purchase order requisition then goes up to the PSC, where they can actually create a purchase order, which is basically a check, a really fancy check that they send out to the vendor that they in turn send in invoices for, and that's how they get paid. Once that's all done, it is then entered into PREP, but it's basically another software system that tracks the entire spend and the savings and the avoidance of each specialist for the category. So entering it into PREP was also a very, very big deal. A lot of data entry of trying to understand what the award was, what the savings were, what was savings, what was avoidance, what was working capital improvements. All this stuff needed to be entered and captured because every month then the higher-ups would use that data to have a tracking trend of how we're doing on our targets. Are we hitting our savings targets, our avoidance targets, our realized savings targets, all this amazing stuff. And then to add to that, we were also doing NCAAs, which are Network Connection Access Agreements. There was also NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so those had to be sent out to vendors in advance of any RFPs we did. Touching back on the purchase order requisitions, this was another form I needed to fill out that needed to be extremely, extremely accurate. Any sort of missed thing as far as dates that didn't line up with the contract in CLM, or you used the wrong purchasing group, or if you used the wrong currency, or anything like that, and it would end up wasting hours of time for the Procurement Service Center as they would have to go back and fix it. Another big thing of mine was onboarding. So there's two types of vendors. There's the approved supplier list, the ACL, and the PSL, so approved supplier list and preferred supplier list. So to get them onto the ASL, to get them as an approved supplier, you had to gather a huge amount of data about the supplier and then hand it off to master data. Some of them, things are coming in, assigning RTEPs, routing documents, doing CLM entries, PREP entries, NCAAs, NDAs. Jeff, where's my purchase order? And then trying to get these vendors onboarded, which some of them are extremely organized, very good vendors who have everything you need. You need at least 5 or 6 big documents from them. So quite often you would think you would have all the documents, and then master data would kick it back and say, no, we're not onboarding these, we need something else. One of the huge key learnings I had while in this role was to make friends and make contacts with people in other departments, because if they don't know you, all you can do is send them a request, and their time is they'll send you back an automated response saying, we have your ticket, it'll be 4 to 5 business days before we can get this taken care of. But sometimes you are really under the gun, under a tight deadline, and you need to be able to somehow surpass that. So then it really helps that you've met someone in master data. It became easier for me sometimes when I was struggling to onboard a vendor, because I could talk to him directly through Skype and I could say, Levon, this is the problem I'm having. is there any way you can help me out here? And he would be able to fix it much faster than going through the normal queue. I could kind of skip the queue of just creating a ticket, and and if I had the right documents, he would say, hey, no problem, I can get that in for you right away, and boom, it would be corrected. So it's extremely important to try and make friends and make a network within the company, because it will end up enabling you to do tasks so much faster. So office politics. I was in a very political environment. The group I was in was very political. There was another group that ran an entire different side of it. Was the vendor management office. Didn't necessarily get along well with my team. There was a lot of friction there. Both teams thought the other one wasn't really needed. One team maybe worked quite a bit harder than the other. Tempers ran very hot. Everyone was under an extreme amount of stress to meet deadlines and do work, and if one person dropped the ball somewhere, it made headaches for 15 people down the line. Networking was something I really enjoyed. I did it a lot more towards the end of my co-op rather than the beginning. I managed to meet with some real high up people within the company, which was very impressive for me. So the way I did that was my big piece of advice for you is to always respect the admins, because they're there for a reason, and they get very insulted if you bypass them there. And there's just nothing wrong with starting up a small little quick conversation with them and becoming friends with them. And then that's what led me to be able to network and have coffee meetings with these directors and these VPs and things. Was you would talk to their admins and say, hey, could you please set this up for me? And if you had a really good rapport with them, they'd be happy to do it. And that's how I got to meet some very important people at the company and sit down with them and have coffee. As a co-op student. Biggest failure was I got thrown into the fire with a very high gear team that knew what they were doing, and I tried to just meet their level as best I could. I felt like I needed to just be at their level, and I didn't ask enough questions. And it wasn't like I didn't want to ask questions, it just was that I just didn't feel like it was a good time to ask questions. I felt like, okay, I'll Google that later, or I'll go ask someone from another department that, because these people are so busy and intimidating. I don't want to look stupid. And that was one of my major fall downs, because to them then I think I looked less interested in learning. And so do not expect to start at the level that these people are at, and do not be afraid to throw your arms up in the air and scream, oh my God, I don't understand this, please help me. All right, they are there to help you, and they want to see that. They want to see that you're willing to admit that you don't know what you're doing and that you need help. Another failure I had was deadlines. You need to be completely upfront with people on their deadlines. Somebody would ask me, when are you going to get this for me? And I would say, I'll get it to you by the end of the day. And I could have, but then 6 other things come along, and 6 other people say, when are you going to get this to me? And I say, oh, by the end of the day, by the end of the day, by the end of the day. And before you know it, I'm buried under tasks that I know I'm not going to be able to get at the end of the day, and now you're disappointing 6 people, instead of if you would have just said to the one person, I will get it to you by the end of the day, and then everyone else you will say, it will be tomorrow, it'll be the next day, it'll be the next day. And yes, you disappoint them at the time when you tell them that, but they are much happier when you meet the deadline you give them than when you give them a deadline they like and then miss it. I had a tough manager. He was really hard on me. To the point of where I felt rather than constructive criticism, it was more berating and things like that. And I got really low and depressed at some points that maybe this job wasn't for me. I thought maybe I'd gone into the complete wrong thing here, or that I was being picked on for no reason whatsoever. And the biggest advice I can give in that scenario is talk to the person running your co-op and say, okay, come up with a solution. They do not just want to hear problems. You do not want to go running to your co-op advisor saying, I've got this problem, this problem, this problem, this person's bullying me, this person's doing this person's screaming at me, blah, 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 blah. What they want is, I have problems, and here are my solutions. Here are my top 3 solutions. This is the number 1 that I would like to happen. This is the number 2, and this is the number 3. If you come at them like that, you're way more likely to come away with a positive outcome. See if you can't get moved. There's many departments. There's all sorts of opportunities to learn things at a huge company like this. So just don't ever get your head down and get depressed and think like, oh, I just got to turtle and get through this. always be proactive and always remember that you're here to learn, and that this is a net positive. It absolutely was a net positive for me. I would highly recommend anyone taking the co-op program. If I had done this before taking my business degree, I think I would have aced so many more classes. You can only learn so much in the classroom. It prepares you to a certain extent, but you never really know what it's like until you get here. And even though I had some really tough experiences during this co-op, there were days I wanted to quit. There was days I didn't think I could do it. I'm so proud of myself for getting through it, and I've made so many friends here, contacts, connections, colleagues, whatever you want to call them. I've made so many great memories here too, and I'm very excited about my job prospects going forward. So I highly recommend the co-op program to you, and I wish you all the very best of luck in your job hunt. Thank you.